Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily update for October 19th, 2021. Let's look at some of the strategic developments that are shaking up the world and should be on your radar screen, but probably aren't because the news media is corrupt and manipulated and doesn't want you to know these things. So we'll take a look, first of all, at the opportunity for collaboration to avoid a catastrophe in Afghanistan, a humanitarian catastrophe, which could lead to the breakup of the country, the potential for the nation to become a staging area for terrorism and drug production. That can still be prevented. And it's not by putting our faith in the Taliban, but by rolling up our sleeves and collaborating with other nations which wish to go in and rebuild a nation that's been destroyed by 40 years of war, for which the United States bears a very large degree of responsibility. On October 20th, there'll be something called the Moscow Format Meeting, which includes Russia, Afghanistan, China, Pakistan, India, Iran, but also the Eurasian neighbors Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. They'll be meeting to discuss what could be done to provide immediate aid, but also long-term aid, development projects. On the table will probably be some offers from China to integrate Afghanistan into the Belt and Road Initiative through corridors of development, which will take place on Afghan territory. The United States has been invited, but has not responded yet. We're not sure if the U.S. will send a representative. Then, a little more than a week later, on October 27th, there'll be a meeting of Afghanistan's neighbors, which will include China, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. Again, the same topic: how to provide the kind of development aid which will move the country forward. While these countries are meeting, the Treasury Department and the Swiss banks and the International Monetary Fund are continuing to freeze funds that should be available for Afghanistan. The European Union's Foreign Minister, Borrell, Foreign Secretary, said the EU will provide emergency aid, but not reconstruction or development aid. Now, what this ensures is that the country will remain weak, divided, hungry, and cold. If you want to prevent war and terrorism, you need to provide development aid, and it's time for the United States to get involved in that. The Schiller Institute had a day of action last week where we went to, in a number of cities, to U.S. embassies, consulates, and key institutions with a demand that the U.S. immediately participate in a collaboration for aid for Afghanistan. If you want to read about that, you can go to the schillerinstitute.com, and there's a report on that. Now, second development was reported in the Financial Times. Involving Chinese military technology advances. In this case, a hypersonic rocket or missile that was completely caught U.S. intelligence by surprise. This is called a hypersonic glide vehicle. It's an offshoot of China's space program that was able to basically circle the Earth in low Earth orbit. And significantly, it went around the South Pole rather than the North Pole, where you have much more monitoring capability. This is a new technology. The Chinese insisted it's a defensive system, and they are continuing to develop their defensive capabilities because of their concern with such programs as the AUKUS Pact, the Asian NATO, and so on. Again, collaboration or war, the choice is going to be up to the American people to make. Another development from China is the opening of a high-speed rail link between Kunming in China and Vientiane, Laos. And from Laos, it can go into Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. It essentially expands the interconnectivity of the whole of Southeast Asia. And this is the kind of project that the Chinese are working on while they're developing extensive networks of high-speed rail. The United States still has no significant high-speed rail capability. This is one of the tragedies of the so-called infrastructure plan of Biden. Now, a third point, there's a new report out by something called the Visual Capitalist Blog, which confirms what we've been reporting, what was out on Wall Street on Parade and elsewhere, that it's the incredible infusion of new liquidity in the form of US dollars, which is driving hyperinflation. The figure is in the last year, $30 trillion in new liquidity has been produced, 22 trillion of which is in North America and Western Europe. This is going mostly into speculation. It's going into banks who then loan it to their leading partners, leading clients who then buy up stocks, buy up derivatives, buy up whatever is hot at the moment. 45% of global wealth, according to this report, that's 45%, is in the hands of 1.1% of households. So the problem is that when you have liquidity pumping, plus enforced technological attrition and backwardness, plus austerity for households, you create an incredible pressure, tension, an arena for increased polarization and anger. That's exactly what these policies are doing. And while they're being exacerbated by social media and others, it's the policies that are the problem. And instead of putting through a bankruptcy reorganization the way Franklin Roosevelt did when he came into office in 1933, they're allowing bankrupt corporations and bankrupt banks to continue to have as much liquidity as they need while there's nothing available for the productive sector. That's a remedy for a total systemic collapse, and that's where we're headed. Now, finally, I want to take up something that's going on in Europe, which is the outcry against Putin and Russia. This is an offshoot of the hubbub that was there about the Nord Stream 2, that this was Russia's means of manipulating Europe. Meanwhile, the EU has not yet licensed the Nord Stream 2, so in the midst of a gas supply crisis, gas is not being made available to the consumers in Western Europe. And then Putin is blamed for it. Putin denied it. Merkel, who's no Putin lover, said that it's not Russia's fault. They're living up to their contracts, as did the European Council Vice President Timmermans, who said that the reality is that it's Europe's policy which is the problem. Now, what Putin said is that it's manipulation by speculators on the spot markets which are driving up the prices. He spoke at an Energy Week forum, a Russia Energy Week forum this week, and he said that the problem starts with a fall of output from the wind farms, which creates a shortage of electricity. This then means they need more gas to produce electricity. So it's the shortage of electricity from the wind farms which requires the need for more gas. And instead of acknowledging that and correcting their own mistakes, what Putin said is they blame Russia. And instead, they should stop shutting down efficient energy sources and stop replacing them with solar and wind. Now, this lecture from Putin, which in our opinion was absolutely on the mark, comes 12 days before the opening of the COP26 conference. So this conference, this green technology conference hosted by Boris Johnson, the follow-up of the Paris Climate Accord, is occurring in the midst of energy shortages, hyperinflationary price shocks that are caused largely by the transition to the green paradigm they're pushing. Not just the insistence on all funding going to solar and wind, but by the shutting off of credit to other energy producers. So no wonder the geniuses in preparation for the COP26 conference are panicked. They're panicked because their own policies, number one, won't work, and number two, are generating a global reaction against them. This is an opportunity to deliver a big defeat to them. And this is something that we have to take advantage of. These kinds of opportunities don't last for long. So get Get yourself acquainted with these issues. We have plenty of material at the schillerinstitute.com and the LaRoucheOrganization.com. And join us in our fight to overturn the Green New Deal and the Great Reset, the tools that are being used to impose a global central banker dictatorship. So thanks for joining me today. I will be back tomorrow.